Yeah. Bills Mafia. Don Brown. Yeah. It's the Mafia, you know I'm rocking with the Bills. It's the Mafia, you know I'm rocking with the Bills. It's the Mafia, I'm with the Buffalo Bills. It's the Mafia, you know I'm rocking with the Bills. Hey, who you reppin'? What's your team? Who you reppin'? What's your team? You know I'm reppin' for my team. I got that talent on my team. Micah High, Jordan Poyer, can you catch it? Can you? Trade day is like a mask, you not catching
Bills Mafia, what is up? And welcome into the Bills Brawl. This is the Process Show, your normal Thursday show. We are here. That is me, Charlie Gross, your regular co-host. I am here with E.J. Daniels, the other regular co-host. And we have a very special guest. My man Cameron is in the building. What is up, my man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. My man Cam, like I said, we've been talking in the DMs, lifelong Bills fan. Can I say that? Lifelong Bills fan?
Oh, before life. My parents born and raised there. I was born there. Can't get it out of my blood.
Nice. So lifelong Bills fan. And he was like, we've been talking back and forth about Bills football. And so I asked him, like, hey, man, you want to come on our podcast on the Bills Brawl? And he politely obliged. So my man Cam is here on the Bills Brawl today. And again, as Charlie said, thank you for coming on the Bills Brawl today.
Of course. And if you guys want to see any writings, I do write for Buffalo Fanatics now.
Hey.
That's right. All right, so gentlemen, what are we talking about today? I've had a lot of Twitter battles with people about Isaiah McKenzie and Matt Milano and John Feliciano, and nobody wants to talk to me about how great the Darrell Williams signing is, though. And I know, EJ, my man, I think you said you got a Stefon Diggs topic you would like to get into. But before we get into that, we just want to let you know we are part of the Brawl Network. The Twitter account for the podcast is at Bills Brawl. My Twitter account is Charlie_Gross_. And with that said, let's get into some Bills talk. Isaiah McKenzie. Isaiah McKenzie re-signed. He's very proud of his 8 touchdowns, which he should be. And what are your guys' thoughts on Isaiah McKenzie? Because I know, EJ, you were pretty down on McKenzie, but you told me that maybe you're changing your tune a little bit.
Yeah, I am going to modify my position just a little bit. So first I was on the Isaiah McKenzie can be replaced by a rookie train, and I was like the conductor of that train. So so I went back and look at his PFF grades and looked at, some of his tape and things of that nature. Looking at his PFF grades, though, one trend that I did notice is that when he got more opportunities, his PFF grade went up as his opportunities rose. So, and then listening to his interviews this week, he was consistently talking about, Buffalo laid out an expectation for me to be a guy where, when my number is called upon to produce. And that's what I did. When my number was called upon, I produce. And with that, it's just like, can I really be like so down on him if that is his role and he knows his role and he does his role well? Can I really be like, oh, this guy sucks? Because I was like, man, they should cut him. They should cut him and not look back. But if you look at the price tag he signed, I don't think his guaranteed money is even $1 million. I think it's like $300K or something like that, or $500K, something like that. But it's not $1 million. And all that money, as I said on this show before, players only see 68% of their contracts. So the fully guaranteed money is literally all that matters. So he hasn't even gotten $1 million to play this year, but he really just wanted to be in Buffalo. And so for that, I'm modifying my position and saying, Bean did a great job into getting another glue guy and another guy who can contribute when he's called upon. And so you're guessing with this new contract that he will be handling more of the special teams, kick return, and punt return duties. So I'm very interested to see how he'll do there after already having one opportunity prior to this one.
Yeah, I don't understand where the hate always came from for Isaiah. I thought he was probably, one of the bigger parts of what the offense was able to do, at least for first half of the year. When you run all that motion pre-play, motion before the snap is highly valuable, and he's the guy that always does it. And I think you're not going to expect him to score 8 touchdowns again in 2021. That's a little bit overvalued, but trying to bring a rookie in, most likely in the 4th round or later, and having to coach him up on being able to run the playbook to the same extent, being able to count on him when his number's called if one of the top 4 goes down, I think it's just a lot more work than bringing a guy back for basically peanuts on a 1-year deal and telling him to be a 5th receiver, motion guy, and then just return some punts and kicks. The special teams part is probably the biggest drawback because you don't know if he's going to be as reliable as Andre. Because Andre was good with the ball. He was good for 30 yards per return. McKenzie has that boomer bust, but I'm pretty sure he did have some fumble problems in Denver, and he just seems a little bit less reliable in that area. But I don't see how it's easier to try to bring a young kid in and coach them up to do the same things for a guy you already have on the depth chart and a guy who's going to be not on the field, an outright outside receiver that you're going to need to depend on unless 2 or 3 guys go down.
Yeah, I get all that, and I totally get why they did what they did. And that's the thing I've tried to say to people when I said, yeah, I don't like this re-signing or I don't like this re-signing. Like, I understand why they did it. Like, I completely get why they re-signed Milano. It's as much for him as it is for Edmonds. Like, Edmonds still struggles a little bit with angles, with reading plays, and Milano is better than him. So, same thing that they did with Josh. You're trying to surround Edmonds. He's your quarterback on defense. You're trying to surround him with veterans and hope that his maturity gets accelerated and all that stuff. So I get it. My point on, not to get too off track on that was like, there's I don't know how many guys, 10 that I can maybe think off the top of my head who they're a coverage linebacker, so I'm like, okay. And the other thing is I'm looking at this in the context of, we went 13-3. We won the AFC East. Okay, that's awesome, but that's in my rearview mirror. Yes, this roster can do that. This roster can't beat the Chiefs. And while I don't know for sure, I'll know this year because we play them, pretty sure they can't beat Tampa. So I'm looking forward and saying, what does this roster have to do to beat Tampa? How did we get beat? EJ knows, he's been talking about it. 3 safeties, physical, young DBs. The Chiefs did that to us, and then Tampa did that to them. And I'm looking around, and I don't want to run back because I just don't think this roster is good enough. And I understand Joe Marino did a great podcast today about all the reasons why running it back is good. And I like Joe. Joe's a good, close friend of mine, I would say. And I certainly respect all that stuff. And I see a lot of good points. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if it's good enough to beat the Chiefs. Like, that's where I'm at. And,
but what would have been? Like, if you're not, I mean, he's stepped.
Well, my other point is, too, Bean's like, the offensive line isn't good enough. And then he brings back the same offensive line. And I know, like, the draft hasn't happened yet, but then everyone's telling me we're going to draft a guy, but then everyone's telling me, well, rookies take a long time to develop. You can't count on it. So which one is it? We're either going to draft a guy and he's going to take over, or they take too long to develop. Just let me know which one it is. That's my whole point. Like, Feliciano's average. He just is. Like, he's not anything special. And is it going to be Ike Bacher and Cody Ford? Those guys aren't really proven either. So if you said it's not good enough, then prove it and make it better. And I understand, like, the cap shrunk for everybody. So, and okay, Emmanuel Sanders leaves after this year. Who takes his spot? Who takes Gabe Davis' spot? McKenzie? I doubt it. I mean, so my point is, I want a guy who can do what McKenzie does, and then in a year or two, who can move up to number 2 or to number 3 or number 4. McKenzie, in my mind, is just going to always be in that spot. he's always going to be your wide receiver 5.
And that was kind of my earlier sentiments about McKenzie. It's just like, you guys want to spend a free agent contract. Granted, the contract he currently signed is a great contract, money-wise, for the Bills. But you guys want to give big money or give a free agent contract to a guy who is just pretty much going to be a gadget guy for the rest of his career. And that was my point. It's just, why not go get a guy in the draft who can do what he does, but also give you some value in the passing game? Not to say that Isaiah McKenzie didn't, but he caught he caught 6 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. I think he caught 6 touchdowns or something like that.
I know it was 5 in the regular season.
Yeah, okay. So that tells me, and if you look at how many targets he gets a game, it's like 2 targets, 1 target, 2 targets, 3 targets, 2 targets. The Miami game was the only game he got over 5 targets. So my point is, he was scoring off of a lot of scramble drill, Josh just making plays, and he just happened to uncover late, stuff like that. It's not like he's running a post corner, for a touchdown or something like that. It's just I'm getting open. You know what I mean? There is no nuance to that. I mean, you have to have a feel for your quarterback, obviously, but it's no nuance, no route running nuance, no seeing the coverages, no doing any of that. And he hasn't shown that he can do that on a high level. So my point at that time was to be why not go get a guy who can do both? Be the gadget guy and also give you some route running ability and some reliability in the passing game.
Because that's harder to find. You're going to have to get the guy that can be able to do both of those things. And at this point, I don't think we need to spend draft capital for a 5th receiver this year and then hope that it can be that guy in the future. They still have Isaiah Hodgins in the room, and we didn't get to see him at all last year. But if all things point to them having positive feelings about him, so they might as well give him a try for this year to try to make the roster, maybe try to beat McKenzie out. He's probably not going to be a gadget guy, but just try to remain on the roster so in 2022 he can actually fight for a spot. And then we have other holes to fill for depth this year. So I think bringing back again a guy who knows the system, who can be the gadget guy, and he's not a fraud at receiver. Cordero Patterson's name was kicked around a bunch in the beginning of the offseason, free agency, and I would have been the same kind of sentiment as you guys are feeling towards McKenzie, because he doesn't run routes like a receiver. He's not an actual outside player. He is the gadget, and I don't think that's worth it. But I think having a guy who can be an okay receiver if his number's called upon, like he was in the Miami game, like he's been throughout the last 1.5 2 years, it's just a fair deal. I don't think you need to look to the draft this year. You have next year. You're going to have the entire draft again. You're going to have bigger cap, more free agency money to spend. Yeah, I just don't think it was a pressing need compared to the other holes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I know why. I completely understand why they did what they did. The whole team chemistry, but then at the same time, what do we want them to draft? They've got 7 draft picks, and we're talking that we want them to trade down. What are they going to draft? I mean, that's my point is but they brought back Wallace. They've been talking up Dane Jackson. They haven't shown any willingness to upgrade that position in the last 2 or 3 years anyway. I mean, yeah, I know everyone wants them to draft a corner, but are they? And that's my other thing is we need speed and we need athletes. And so in that sense, McKenzie's fast. I get you, but he's I don't know. He's probably the fastest guy on the team, right? And I don't know. What I'm saying is nobody wants to draft a replacement for Feliciano. No one wants to draft a replacement for Milano. No one wants to. Well, so what do you want them to draft? I mean, they seem fine with their defensive line, more or less. They signed another guy today. So I don't I don't know what they're. Yeah. I just don't know what.
I want a linebacker, not first round, but I want a linebacker behind Edmonds and Milano, because they keep going off these 2 guys and how important they are to the defense, but they don't seem to have any options behind them that they seem comfortable with if anything were to happen. Yeah. And they didn't overpay for Milano, but they easily could have, just to retain that because of how important he is to the defense. And I think they're using him a little bit as a crutch. So just getting depth there would be important, but that's probably day 2.
Yeah, I agree exactly what you're saying. They didn't have to re-sign Milano. They really didn't. The contract that they signed him to is a heck of a contract because it's heavy incentive laden. So I'm not mad at it. You know what I mean? But I do feel that they could have got a more solid player in the draft. And going back to what Charlie was saying, they re-signed Feliciano. but they're not going to upgrade the offensive line position. You know, McKenzie's coming back on a fair deal. You know what I mean? But, you know, some people such as myself want to upgrade at that position. You know what I mean? So what do we do? And then they're showing unwillingness to draft or even add speed and athleticism to the cornerback 2 spot. And they're talking up Dame Jackson, right? So this goes back to the point that I've been making so many times on this podcast and just so many times on Twitter, and it's very relevant right now, is I say that Bills Mafia, their judgment is clouded by the fact that they like these players as individuals and as personalities, not their actual play on the field. Because Levi Wallace, honestly, he played solid. He played solid, right? And it was good enough to get them to the AFC Championship. But when we play teams, like to your point, Charlie, when we play teams like the Chiefs, who have an abundance of speed at pretty much every position on offense, besides O-line, obviously, but they have abundance of speed at every position, you know, we need to match up with that speed. You're not going to be able to outzone them. And you saw that. They scored on every drive but one. Teron Johnson struggled to cover tight when they put Tyreek Hill in the slot, even though Teron Johnson was their best cover guy towards the end of the season. So how do you combat that? You match speed for speed. I read an article today that said that every NFL team is trying to add more speed and get more athletic. So what do? You draft more athletic players. And the fact that they're neglecting to do that is just bewildering to me, because it's just like Levi Wallace gets torched in man coverage. But, I mean, as the cover one guy say, he can tackle. So, I mean, that's the reason that McDermott and them keep him on the field, because he can tackle. And he can tackle now. He had the highest tackle grade out of everybody on the Bills, linebackers included. So he can tackle. But would you rather have your corner covering or tackling? Me personally, I'd rather have my cornerback cover at a high level than tackle at a high level. That's just my personal opinion. So,
you get an athlete in there. So I'm saying you get an athlete in there and you already have a room full of guys who can tackle. Like Taron Johnson's a good tackler. He's good at everything besides staying with his guy for the most part. Tre'Davious White's probably one of the best tackling cornerbacks in the league. You know, he's known for that. He's known for doing everything. So if you get that athlete, then you're just being able to switch yourself up. And that could be, I guess, like the red herring this year is, are we okay with doing exactly what we did last year and being a really good team? Or are we trying enough to switch it to a next gear and get past things? But you guys are saying when you got to match up with Tampa and Kansas City, and I think that's like a dilemma teams face a lot over the course of NFL history, is like, do you want to match up only to beat the teams that you've lost to in the past before, or do you want to match up to be able to be the best team that you can be? Like for a decade and a half, we tried to match up so we can beat the Patriots, and we just never were good enough to do that. But we also weren't good enough to beat other teams with different looks. It's like, so if you only prepare for the Chiefs, maybe you're selling yourself short, but at the same time, it's most likely you're going to have to go through them again. So it's a little dilemma of, do you try to beat the best two teams or do you try to beat the field?
This tournament season, take care of your hair and holes with the best tools for the job. We're talking about our sponsors, Manscaped, the global leaders in male grooming from head to toe. When the clock winds down in March, be clutch and avoid the upset with the Manscaped Performance Package to keep all your hair and holes tamed. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the Manscaped movement and start taking care of your balls today with 20% off and free shipping by going to manscaped.com and using code BRAWL for our exclusive offer. Your bracket isn't supposed to be perfect, but with the Manscaped Performance Package, you can be confident that your nose, ear, and ball pubes are. The Manscaped Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle and #1 overall seed this season. Included in this package is the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. It provides proprietary skin-safe technology which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. Look, fellas, 79% of partners polled admitted that long nose hair is a major turnoff. Why not use the best tools for the job here? This amazing bundle also includes the Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, the best trimmer on the market for your balls, butt, and body. It checks every box for a Final Four run. Let's not forget their famous liquid formulations, the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner to maximize your ball hygiene routine and keep you fresh, ready for anything. Get the Performance Package now to receive their 2 free gifts, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Another favorite of mine are their Crop Mop Wipes, cool and refreshing ball button body wipes for peak male hygiene and extra care where it matters most. Your purchase goes towards a good cause because they partnered with the GOAT, Alex Caruso, and the Testicular Cancer Society to bring awareness to testicular cancer, men's health, and early cancer detection. Manscaped is committed to raising awareness for the most common form of cancer in men aged 15 to 35 and giving support to fighters, survivors, and families impacted by testicular cancer as part of their We Save Balls initiative. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BRAWL at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code BRAWL. When things get hairy, make sure to call on Manscaped in clutch time.
Yeah, no, I get you. And I think it's a tough dilemma, right? I mean, those are the 2 best teams in the league, right? I mean, maybe you throw Green Bay in there. But then you look at it, too, as they barely beat the Colts. They barely beat the Ravens. They didn't go into the playoffs and start blowing teams out. Mm-hmm. Those games were easily losable games. So if you're going to maintain the status quo, I mean, if Wentz becomes what he was when Reich was in Philadelphia, we have a problem. Do you want to run into them in the playoffs? What about the Titans? They smoked us. And all I heard was COVID. But then all of a sudden
that was a facade.
It was because Matt Milano was out. Now all of a sudden people are telling me it's because Matt Milano was out. So
Trey White.
I don't understand what it is. And I think EJ, I don't know if it was EJ but we talked there was a heat map tweet that came out right after the Super Bowl. And to me, it indicated that Tampa basically ran the same defense the Bills ran, more or less, like cover 2, cover 3. So what's the difference then? You ran this defense and you got smoked twice by the Chiefs. Tampa ran it and they smoked the Chiefs. So what's the difference? The difference is they have better pass rushers and they have more athletic defensive backs, and they've got probably the best coverage linebacker in the NFL. And I know you can't do all of that in one offseason, but I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the system. I think you need some better players in certain situations, but sure, you've got to make sure you can beat the Patriots who look like they're just going to run the ball and throw tight ends all year. You've got to make sure you can beat the Dolphins who I don't know what the Dolphins are doing, but you have to, I understand that. I'm not saying that that's not relevant, but okay, but you still need to beat the Chiefs. Until somebody beats them, to me, they're still the best team in the AFC. So what are you doing to counter that? And at this point, it looks like to me, they're just saying, well, one more year and the guys will get better. And just player progression isn't always linear. There's roller coaster. It's up, down. I mean, who knows? I don't know.
And then on top of your point, Charlie, what happens if the defense regress? What happens if the defense isn't as good? Because the defense, it really wasn't that great last year. But what if it gets even worse next year? Because you pretty much brought back all the same players. That's all you did. You know what I mean? And hopefully they're going to add another corner. That is what I'm praying that they do. And they added a defensive end today. So you added only a couple pieces, right? So you're saying that I feel that we're with what we currently have, plus maybe 2 or 3 more pieces that we can beat them, right? And so you're saying, what is the difference between the Bucks running the same system and then the Bills running this system, right? And like you said, Charlie, it's the fact that it had better players. The Bucks invested 7 picks in 2 drafts in DBs. You just think about that. 7 picks in DBs after they drafted Vernon Hargreaves with their first pick in one of these drafts, right? And they still attacked the position with Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, Murphy Bunting, who's Winfield Jr., all of these guys. And so I'm saying, and I've been saying since the Super Bowl, why not the Bills employ that same strategy? Now, Bills Mafia, I heard the other day they were saying, oh, now we need another cornerback, right? Now when I've been saying that they need a cornerback for a while, now that the Patriots got all those tight ends, now is when y'all want another cornerback now. When I've been saying that since the Chiefs game, right? And so now, then on top of that, and what pisses me off the most is the fact that you guys want a running back at 30 when you need cornerbacks. And you don't understand how –
I think they're setting themselves up to take a running back with their first pick.
Which is so sad. It's so sad.
Right. That'd be the dumbest move they could possibly do is take another running back when they took 2 in the 3rd round the past 2 years who do the same thing. All you got to do is draft some more guards. You could get people to play guard. There's some really good guards in this draft. They don't even have to be 1st round. They could be 4th, 5th round. You can get some pretty decent guards. Just get depth at the position. Get some competition at the position to see who actually is the better guards. You know, and they're not going to do that, though. And like you guys say, they're going to set up to take a running back when they can take pick 30, grab all of the value out of it, trade back, and find a guy like Asante Samuel Jr., and then also get another guy like Iffy, who'll also be there in the 2nd round. But no, Bills Mafia wants a running back.
I think both of them will be there in the 2nd round.
Iffy and Asante, yes. I do think both of them will be there in the 2nd round. Probably top of 2nd round, but they'll be there. I think they will.
I think someone's going to jump the gun on Samuel. But you're right. I was thinking earlier in the offseason that just athletes anywhere, like even safety. Poyer and Hyde are really good athletes, but having a guy behind them, like with Dean Marlowe, that you can just run different looks and constantly battle and change yourself so you can run with anybody. And I'm kind of arguing against myself. It's like if you are able to beat Tampa and Kansas City, you're basically able to beat anybody. So matching up with them is a positive attribute. And I have been really disappointed in people like Marcel with ESPN. I'm trying to like pound the gavel for running back at 30 because people are acting like Moss and Singletary are just guys that they had on the roster stashed for a few years and like old vets or something like that. But they took them in the middle of two drafts in a row. And it's either you don't believe that they're good at picking running backs, you don't believe those running backs are getting the proper protection, and either way, like why would you trust a franchise to pick a running back at 30 that's going to change anything?
Yeah, well, I was when they made the Singletary pick, you know, I have some pretty strong beliefs about how teams should draft and how they should team build. And when Brandon Beane had his press conference, and you know, I'm on the Chase Winovich train. And they're like, well, why did you draft Singletary? He's like, oh, man, I loved just watching him on tape. He was fun. And I'm like, uh-oh. Like, that's not exactly the first thing I want to hear from my general manager is that I had fun. You have fun watching a lot of guys tape. Like, yeah. And obviously I hope there was more to it that he just didn't say. But the thing he said publicly is the only thing I can react to. And that's what he said. And I was like, and, you know, and I don't know, like, what happens if we draft Winovich? I don't know. But, like, we wouldn't probably be talking about their need to draft a defensive end now because they would have had him. You know, and Singletary, he's okay. I mean, he's a little slow. And to your point about the Chiefs, and this is something I said too, is look at how we play defense against them. Like, Mecole Hardman is average, but he's fast. And we're terrified of that guy. And we're more terrified of Tyreek Hill, obviously. But we're playing like prevent defense against them because we're terrified of their speed and we're terrified of their athletes. So what can we do to make them terrified of us? Like, are they scared of us? Like, are they, oh, man, here come the Buffalo Bills? Because they crushed us twice. So this year they're on our schedule again. Are they like, uh-oh? Or are they just kind of like, well, no big deal? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I mean, I just want them to be afraid of us for some reason. And
right.
You know,
one thing I wanted to add to your point, Charlie, is you brought up the point about the Chiefs crushed the Bills and they beat them twice, right? So look at that first time they played the Bills, right? It was in Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken, and they had 34 rush attempts, if I'm not mistaken. It was, but I remember it was 30. Yeah, it was 30 plus. I remember that because it was raining really hard, and obviously they had to switch their game plan, right? So I was saying on this podcast the whole time, like, yo, the lack of balance by Buffalo is what's going to kill them, is what's going to beat them in the end because they cannot run the ball. They literally refuse to run the ball consistently, right? But I'm bringing my point back to the Chiefs. They were able to beat the Bills the first time by running the ball down the Bills' throat. Then the second time they played the Chiefs, in a conference championship, they were able to beat them with their regular game plan of pretty much just passing all around the yard, right? So they were able to beat the Bills two different ways. And so I am saying that the Bills could have did that same exact thing. They could have run the same exact type of philosophy because they have People don't believe that they have the roster to do it, but they do have the roster to run the ball effectively. They were the 5th highest graded zone running team at the beginning of the year. And then towards the end of the year, they started tapering off, and that's what every Bills Mafia remembers. You always remember the most recent thing, and that's what happened, right? But when Dable, in the Baltimore game, is only running the ball once per half, like, how do you expect anybody to get any type of rushing continuity when you're only running the ball, like, once in a playoff game? Right. And so my point is to sum it all up is the Bills can have that same type of versatility as the Chiefs. And sometimes I feel like it's play calling, but like I feel like they refuse to have that type of balance because of whatever, because they feel like they're such a great prolific passing team. But they can literally be as good on offense as the Chiefs are. They're just not fast, but they could be just as good.
I don't even think they need balance. I just think they need efficiency when they run it. And I think you're right. They had it for a good part of the year. And the game that's like glaring to me is that Steelers game on Sunday night. They ran the clock out for like 8.5 minutes on one of the best defenses in football. So it's not – the running game isn't like anywhere to be found. There's glimpses and parts of it that actually work. And you saw how Feliciano reacts whenever they ran the ball against Baltimore, pumping his fist, cheering. The linemen want it more. They're probably going to focus on it more coming into this year. That was one of the first things out of McDermott's mouth. The linemen seem to always push for it. There's just talk about it. But it just really depends on, are they going to focus on scheming up ways to run the ball effectively when they need to, or are they going to focus on, let's just put the best athlete we can find in the draft and hope everything works out? Because if it's the latter, then I think they're kind of pigeonholing themselves, at least for maybe not this year. If they get Etienne and he's really good, it could help in a single year time frame. But 3 years down the road, you're looking at whatever corner the teams in front of you and behind you took, and you're looking at the running back that you still have, and you're wondering why your defense is slipping, your offense still continues to be good. You're just throwing yourself in the loop that I think Kansas City might get into in a couple of years because of Clyde. And now they lost both of their tackles, losing a couple pieces on their team. They could have just had some more depth. It's just kind of like running yourself an unnecessary risk.
Yeah, I think the moves that they've done or not done, to me, kind of say what they think of their running game. And like I said, Brandon Beane said, oh, well, I don't think it's the running backs. I think it's the line. So it's either the running backs, the line, the frequency of play calling, or, the type of plays or the blocking scheme. From what I've seen, they brought back all the offensive linemen, and obviously the running backs are there. So to me, at least right now, it says that they don't think that that's the problem. So They must think the problem is either they didn't call enough running plays or they didn't call the right ones. And that's right. And that's something that Dable can just fix and the coaches can fix. And so that's what it says to me, at least right now. Now, maybe they go into the draft and they draft three guards or whatever it is. But at this point, that's what it says to me. So, the running has been really, really weird. It just seems – I know they're a passing team, and that's what they're good at, but I'm not a fan of running the ball, but you got to, run it a couple times. They just didn't I don't know. I don't know. We're not in the locker room, right? So it's hard for us to say, but it was weird towards the end of the year.
I think they also love Cody Ford. That's what kind of the moves said to me, is that if they get Feliciano back and they feel like they have Cody Ford on the other side, that they can do a lot more. But again, we're not there, but they just seem like they're really high on him if they're okay with bringing everyone back and just adding him as the only new piece to.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, they put in 9 months of work scouting him, right? And they drafted him because they believe in him. So, and he's been hurt. And that's another thing we talked about is just put Cody Ford in a spot and let him see what he can do. You keep moving him around and this and that, the other. And I'm fine with giving him 1 more year and seeing what he is. And maybe he just becomes a backup swing tackle or something, or the Ryan, Bates 2.0 or whatever. I don't know, but they like Bucker, obviously. So it seems like they're going to sort of rock with those guys. Maybe they draft a guy and see how it all shakes out. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm willing to bet money. They're probably going to draft that kid from Whitewater, Wisconsin, Quinn Miners. I will bet money on it because he is everything that McDermott probably wants in his lineman. Because if I'm not mistaken, he can play center and guard. And he is and his Senior Bowl performance kind of solidified him going in the top 4 rounds. So I would willing to put $20 on it that they probably look to draft him. They had a meeting with him too, a virtual.
Here we go. Yeah, $20.
So I would put money on that pick. There's no official bets going on. I'm just saying that
Okay.
I would put. I would put.
Everyone
saying I would put.
Everyone who retweets this.
I was saying I would put $20 on it.
It's not legal out here, so I can't.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
It's not legal here either.
Right.
Isn't it?
No.
Where are you? Are you in Buffalo?
Yeah.
That's right. I thought it was legal. I thought I went to a casino like 3 years ago, and
I think at the casino it might be.
Yeah, you can do it at the casino.
Everywhere else you can't.
Yeah.
Like at the So,
we're like this close to sports betting becoming official, so that's nice.
I've been pushing for that for like 2 years now, man. I'm a DraftKings head, man. I live on DraftKings.
I want to,
bro. Yeah,
the NFL is in
crazy,
cahoots now with all these betting companies after decades of like shaming people for it, and now they got DraftKings, FanDuel, everyone coming for them to advertise during the games. It's just weird.
Right.
Yeah. And with Feliciano signing, Charlie, do you not like value his ability to play center as well, or do you just think he's average at that too, so it's still just not worth the money?
Well, I mean, I think he's not as good as Morse.
But Morse is basically on his way out. That's what the team's kind of showing by.
Yeah, and that's weird. That's weird to me too. Like you didn't know what you got when you signed him. He's one of the 5 best pass blocking centers in the league, probably. Then does he hinder your ability to do some power running? Maybe, but like figure out a way to use him. But yeah, like that whole situation was bizarre to me. Like okay,
he's been injured a lot.
Well, I mean, he had
enough.
1 concussion. What was it? Or I mean, Feliciano's been injured about the same amount. If you're going by games, like I just think Feliciano's average. Like the whole thing about him, like defending Josh, and I'll say it again. Like you wouldn't have to if you would have blocked your guy. Like and I know it's Chris Jones. Like I get it, but like that's what he's paid to do. He's paid to block Chris Jones. He's paid to block Aaron Donald. Like, I'm sorry, but I understand those are like base. Aaron Donald's obviously Hall of Famer, and maybe Chris Jones is too. Like, I understand it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's what you're paid to do. And he destroyed you. He destroyed your quarterback. Your quarterback like threw the football at him. I turned the game off by that point because I was so pissed off. And then Feliciano's like, oh, well. What do you want, man?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That was just the Bills fans. Like, that's the Bills fan mentality, though. Bills and Sabres. If you're punching a guy and you're defending your teammate, they like that more than your production.
Yeah, I mean, go watch a hockey game if you want to see some fighting. Like, whatever.
Like, they love Shaq Lawson when he was punching Leonard Fournette, even though it didn't matter. Didn't really do anything at that point.
Yeah,
Clamoring over any kind of physicality.
I think he's better at run blocking than at pass blocking. And, I mean, like I said, I just want – I know that every team goes through their roster and they give each player a grade, right? And then they more or less, and I know I'm simplifying this down, so I understand that, but like they basically go, okay, who's got the lowest grade? Okay, let's replace that guy. He has a 50, like that's kind of a simplified way of what they do. So maybe they have a really high grade on Feliciano, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't know. I mean, like, that's just kind of my point.
I think with Feliciano, though, like, he definitely can be upgraded, but the reoccurring thing that I keep hearing is that, like, his continuity for everybody else on the line is, like, unmatched. And people like to poo-poo on it, but continuity definitely matters, though. Like, look at the Saints line. The Saints had like 4 opportunities to go to the Super Bowl. Obviously, they didn't capitalize on it, but they pretty much kept their same line intact for those 4 years that they missed, right? And so you take that same approach with the Bills. Feliciano was the best run blocker on the team, statistic-wise, like grade-wise. He was the best run blocker on the team. Yes, he sucked at pass blocking. And like I started with, I mean, he can be upgraded, but it's the fact that, he is a dog in the run game and he does help everybody else. I think that's what's valuable. And again, another contract that's heavy and scintillating. Like, I mean, they got him for a fair price and he will play his role, and if at worst comes to worst, he'll be a depth guy, so, I mean, I would definitely see the Bills, adding someone in the draft, but, Feliciano's still a good signing to me.
They also didn't have the room to really spend big on some of the premier guards and tackles that were coming out of the free agency. They didn't really have that room to make. So, like, signing someone for a short, small-term deal doesn't really hurt. And I think that continuity does help Josh, even though he's not protecting him all the time. It's kind of what built into last year's continuity all across the board and coaching staff, management, and players. Like, we probably got a leg up because we didn't change almost anything besides Stefon Diggs on our offense last year. So I think they're okay with just running it back in the sense of you only had 1 year to really try to win a Super Bowl. Go 2 years and then make it a pattern to see what's really wrong with your team and then make changes. Try to see what you can do to scheme around things that you did wrong last year and then take another stab at it with different players once you figure out that you're not able to go over that hump with this team.
Yeah,
it's only been a year.
Yeah, and I get, like, I'm sure the salary cap shrinkage probably hurt some things that maybe they had planned to do, and I get that, and I'm a big believer in continuity. And some guy said to me on Twitter today, oh, well, they can't, just get all new players. I said, I never said I wanted all new players. I don't want 53 new players. I just said there were a few places that I wish they upgraded, but I'm not trying to poo-poo on the continuity. I'm a big believer in that, but each team does makes obviously changes happen in the NFL. Like, no one really just run even that, right? We cut John Brown, we've got a Sanders. I think that's a little bit of a bump. That's cool. But like I said, I'm looking at it in the context of what do you have to do to beat the Chiefs and Tampa? Like, I don't care about beating the Dolphins, the Jets, the Patriots, because I think we can beat them. So let's try to figure out what we can do to beat the teams that we can't beat. And right, maybe next year the salary cap probably goes back up to 220, and so maybe there's some different things and obviously extenuating circumstances this offseason, which certainly probably forced them to do some things that in a different way than they wanted to, and I acknowledge that.
But I don't think you can be disappointed and just fully disappointed in running it back, just because you look at what other teams have done, taking big swings, and we kind of we're not able to this year because of the salary cap. Don't know what their mentality might have been, but you don't want to oversell yourselves and try to do what the Rams do, what the Eagles kind of did, what the Saints did, and just leverage right now to get rid of the future, or leverage yourself right now and get rid of the future. Because again, 1 year into this team being contender, I think you have enough talent and enough coaching on your team to think that you can go again and try to get over the hump, instead of thinking that we need to pound ourselves into a Super Bowl team right now, a Super Bowl favorite right now, or else we're not going to hit that.
Yeah, no, I get you. EJ, you're a Rams guy. What do you think in terms of the way the Rams build their roster as opposed to, the Bills, right? Like, the Rams are more willing to take on stars, trade draft capital, push money further down the road. Well, I mean, it's kind of just two different ways to do something. Which I guess what I'm asking you is, which way do you prefer, since you're a Bills guy and a Rams guy?
I honestly, man, you put me on the spot. I honestly don't mind either way, but me personally, my personality, if I was a GM, I'd probably go more the Rams way, because what they do is they mortgage draft picks for known commodities. And I can never not say no to a known commodity. I mean, they mortgaged 2 first-round picks for the best corner in the league, and that turns out to be a smart move, because what are the chances that whatever those two picks are, or 1 pick or whatever, what are the chances that pick is going to be as good as Jalen Ramsey is? I don't see a pick. I mean, you can take a shot, but who says that pick is going to, be a top corner or be a top wide receiver or be even middle of the pack at their position? I'm going for the known guys. They traded 2 first-round picks for Matt Stafford, who pretty much been a top 10, 15 quarterback his whole career. He just playing in Detroit with not a lot of talent around him, so we don't really give him the credit and recognition that he deserves. But to answer your question, I love the way the Rams do stuff. I love the fact that they give away draft picks to win now in a league where everything is about what have you done for me lately. I mean, they personify that in the most dangerous way possible. They, like I said, they give up draft picks to get known commodities. And again, you don't know what those draft picks are going to give you back in return. But I know exactly what I'm going to get back from Matt Stafford or what I'm going to get back for Jalen Ramsey. I know what I'm going to get from these guys. And the Rams window is still open to win a Super Bowl. So why not? Why am I going to sit and wait when I have, a window to win a Super Bowl? And if you look at the Rams too, just like the Bills, honestly, they have hit on late picks. Look at the Bills. They have hit on, well, let's not say it's a hit, but they found Dane Jackson. They found Gabe Davis. They're going to see what they got in Isaiah Hodgins. Tyler Bass. Look at Tyler Bass. I mean, they have shown that they can hit on late picks. So if your hit rate on late picks is that accurate, why not mortgage these, first and second round picks and get more late picks if you know that you can find diamonds in the rough? The Rams have found Darius Williams, who they just tendered. They found Troy Hill in the late rounds, who just left to go to the Browns. They found John Johnson, the safety, John Johnson. There it is, the John Johnson late in the draft too. Like these are top notch, right? These are top notch guys that they found late in the draft. So if you're finding and hitting on late targets like that, I mean, I don't see how you can argue with the, win now strategy that the Rams employ.
Because the Matt Stafford move, I think, is the best move they've made out of the bunch. Like, Jalen Ramsey is the best player, but like relative to position, the Matt Stafford actually makes sense because he's the glue of it. Before, they were just doing all these moves, trading first-round picks, trading capital, spending big money on guys around a quarterback who they didn't trust themselves, and was apparent, and who wasn't good enough for them. But I like the Bills mentality better because you take calculated risks. You throw out draft picks and money when it makes sense and not to be overzealous. Like, Stefon Diggs trade is like the perfect example of realizing that your team is here and has a chance to contend, and then putting yourself over the top with a pick that might have gotten you something back. You could have got Justin Jefferson, but you didn't know if he was going to fall to you. You don't know if he's going to work out.
Want to get in on the action? Thanks to our partnership with DraftKings, new users can play free fantasy sports with a first-time deposit. Here's how it works. Create your new DraftKings DFS account, play free fantasy sports with your first-time deposit, compete against others and rack up points as you compete for first place. Enter now. This offer won't be around forever. Just go to dkng.co/brawl to get these rewards. That's dkng.co/brawl. Act quickly. This won't be around forever. Minimum $5 deposit. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
But the Rams are mortgaging everything for a couple of years by doing that. And they can hit on late picks, but you still have to consistently hit on them. And like you're saying, they're having a bunch of guys leaving free agency because they can't afford anyone. They're so top heavy that if the top falls off a little bit, their future is like non-existent. And they're in between going to the Super Bowl and being champions and firing their coach in 2 years.
Yeah, it's certainly a strategy that requires you to hit on more draft picks than you miss, and hit, and not just hit, but get value. Mm-hmm. Like, you can hit on the 6th round pick, and a hit might be, okay, he's a solid backup, but if you get value from that guy and he becomes a starter, right? Like a Matt Milano type pick, that's totally, those could be two different things. They're both hits, but you're getting much more value. And that's important, to get starters and guys who are valuable with those picks. And I think that's the only way that strategy works. And I was kind of making fun of them a lot at first about it. I was like, oh man, these guys, like, what are they doing? But I think that's a good segue too, EJ, unless you got something else you wanted to to mention about the Rams, I know you've got a Diggs thing that you wanted to throw out there.
Yeah. I got an interesting thought on Diggs, and it was sparked on Sunday. So now that I have two knowledgeable football Bills fans, I want your opinions, and I want us to have a discussion about it because I think it's worth a discussion. So I was going back, scrolling through my feed on Twitter as usual, and of course you get the irrational Bills fan who put something that said, Stefon Diggs is the best receiver in the NFL, and the only person I'm going to listen to that's better than him is Devontae Adams, right? That was what the tweet said. So I said, now just for a little backdrop, I've loved Stefon Diggs since he came out of Maryland. I've been following him his whole career. He's my second favorite receiver. Keenan Allen and Stefon Diggs, those are my two guys. Those are the guys I love to watch play. I've loved Diggs from the beginning, right? But I am in a field where objective analysis matters to me. I don't know about anybody else, but it matters to me. I like to see the Bills win. I'm from Rochester, but objective analysis matters to me. So objectively speaking, I do not think Stefon Diggs is the best receiver in the NFL. He had crazy numbers. He had 192 targets total between the playoffs and the regular season. That is a lot of targets. That will most certainly decrease next year. Because you can't force feed the ball to somebody like that. You can, but it's probably not going to work out the way they think it's going to work out next year. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is Stefon Diggs has literally been producing at this similar level for like the past 4 years. He has had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, including this year. In 3 years in a row in Minnesota with a run-first offense, which I think is pretty impressive, considering that they found Adam Thielen and they wanted to pump him 200 targets a year too. So the fact that he was able to get 1,000 yards with all these conditions, and all of the stuff that they heard about Diggs coming out, he was a Madonna, he wasn't a team guy, all this stuff. The one thing that remains consistent that he produced, and I felt that the Vikings that is, should have paid him his money instead of let him go. They got Justin Jefferson, so it worked out fine. But the question I want to pose to the panel is, after this year, do you feel that Stefon Diggs is the best receiver in the league? And so to give you the ending of that little Twitter spat I had, I told him the same thing. I said, I was trying to explain it, but it's tough explaining stuff through tweets. I said, Diggs has been doing the same exact thing, killing any DB from any alignment pretty much his whole Minnesota career. He's been in the league for 5 years and only had 2 years where he didn't go over 1,000. And in his second year in 16, he had 903 yards. So he's been doing this since he's gotten to the league, essentially, right? So what changed? Because his skill set really hasn't changed. He's still killing DBs. He's still doing what he's doing. He's still one of the best contested catch guys, still one of the best yak guys, still one of the best route runners in the league. So what changed from Minnesota to Buffalo that now warrants him to be the best receiver in the league when he's been doing this his whole career? What has changed now besides his targets and touches? And I can tell you, but I want to hear you guys' thoughts first before I tell you what the difference is.
Charlie, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, you can go first. Go ahead.
I was going to say exactly that, though. Volume. People live on volume when you're talking about the best in the game. And Stefon was putting up good numbers in Minnesota, but when you're shadowed next to a guy who's also number one receiver in Thielen, and you have a running back in the backfield who's great, and an overall team that's been good for a while, people respect you, but they don't look at you in that kind of light. And he didn't have the top-heavy team. We were the Bills 13-3. You're going in the playoffs. You're making huge plays in every primetime game you're playing on. You're making plays in the playoffs. People just look. When they see more of you, they respect you more and they value you more. It's always, what have you done for me lately? Anything. And to the actual question, I wouldn't say he's the best receiver in the league. I would put Hopkins ahead of him at least. But to be boring, I'd say it doesn't really – there's no, gap between a 1 and a 2 or 1A, 1B. I think you could put Adams, Hopkins, Hill, and Diggs right now all in there, and you couldn't really be mad at it. They're all in that same kind of level, and I think it always comes down to personal preference and what you'd like your receiver to do. I like that Stefon can do almost anything. He's not the full burner that Hill is. He's not the better contested catcher that Hopkins is. He's not as crisp a route runner as Adams is, but he's insanely good at all of those things. So I don't know if you can put him at number one clearly, but he's definitely in the conversation. And I don't think it matters if people say he's the best or not. I think we understand what we have. We have an elite receiver who's going to be there year in, year out. He didn't just break out because of Allen or because of the offense or because being force-fed. He was able to work with Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum. I think Hopkins, just because of the quarterbacks he did work with in Houston, and Kyler Murray's not on the same level as Allen is, even though he got a lot of praise and hype. He's just able to dominate with less than average quarterback play. Stefon's always had at least average to above average, even with Keenum. Keenum had his best year of his career there. But I don't think there's an argument to be made that there's a clear number one.
Yeah, I guess I would say, first of all, no, I don't think he's the best receiver in the league. I think he's better than Michael Thomas for sure.
Michael Thomas may be one of the most overrated receivers in the league.
Why?
Easily.
Why? Because you pump him a lot of underneath targets. He broke the catches record. 2 years ago.
Yeah, like he literally just takes 2 steps and they throw him.
Right. I mean, if I'm
he
throwing,
beats his man.
They call him Slant Boy for a reason because he runs like one route.
Yeah.
He also ran his route tree from 2019 was way more diverse than people make it.
It's not as diverse as all the other guys that we just named. My top 3 right now are Devontae, Keenan, and Hop. Those are my top 3 right now.
Yeah, and I guess I would say it depends, right? Because this is an argument I get into all the time on the Draft Network Slack channel, which is weird because it's like full of guys who like scout, like not for a living necessarily, but there's a lot of like the Draft Bible guys around there, and and they're like, oh man, like this guy's the best. I'm like, why? Well, did you see how many catches he had? And I'm like, bro, like your hobby is scouting players. Like, if I was going to dive deep into this and try to figure out who the best receiver in the league was, I'd scout them like I scout a college guy. And I'd like write a scouting report, and then I'd see where their grades ended up. Like, but once a guy gets into the NFL, no one wants to do that. They just say, oh man, did you see that? He had 10 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. He's great. And there's and that's just, it becomes very box score scouting-ish. So, yeah, and I think the guys you mentioned, right, like Allen, Diggs, Hopkins, Adams, the top 6 or 7 guys I think are pretty like they're very close. I'm sure if you did grade them that way, they'd all be like very close to each other in terms of like what grade you gave them. So I think it can sort of, change a little bit. Like did this guy get a little better? Did he get some more moves off the line? Did this guy have a down year in contested catches, or was his route running not? I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. But if I was doing it, I would scout them the way I would scout a college receiver.
And to your point, Charlie, that's kind of how I go. I go based off the tape. The numbers are cool, but if you're a top guy, your numbers are gonna look like that anyway. Because there's all of the rules are built for receivers to win anyway. So your numbers are gonna look like that. Teams play more zone coverage than ever. So all of that underneath stuff is gonna be open. So your numbers are gonna be inflated. So what do I have to look for? I have to look for the tape. Like you said, I have to look for your releases. I have to look for how you catch. I have to look for how you play in contested catch situations. How do you play down in the red zone? Like stuff like that. I have to actually sit and watch tape. And this is the thing that pisses me off about fans and Bills Mafia in particular, is that half of them do not watch any tape but make, excuse my language, but dumbass assertions like this. Like, yo, this guy's the best receiver. But have you watched his tape? Have you watched his routes? Have you watched him go up against the best guys? No, you have not. That's the answer to the question. No. So to circle back on what I was saying before, what changed between Minnesota and Buffalo for Bills fans?
Right.
It's the fact that he plays
because they never watched Minnesota games.
Exactly. He plays for Buffalo now. That's what changed. So now that he's putting up these big numbers in Buffalo, now he's the best receiver in the league. But he's been putting up the same.
Bills fans going to be like that.
Yeah, but I'm just showing the irrationality of Bills Mafia right now.
Oh yeah,
to sit here and say something like that when you haven't watched his tape, when you haven't watched him consistently. Someone had said today, like, "Oh, Diggs was playing in a small market like Minnesota. Is Buffalo not a small market too?"
Right.
Buffalo's definitely a small market. Their fans make a lot of noise, which puts a lot of attention on Buffalo, but it's considered a small market because it's Western New York. No one. Yeah, this is a small market. It's
and I would say, too, to the fans, like, I don't expect every fan to watch film, right? Like, I get it. A lot of people are busy. They just use the games as an escape, right? Like, they just, like, go on there to Facebook and say what they say, and then they go listen to WGR for a little while or whatever, and I get it, and that's fine. Like, it's a game. It's supposed to be an escape from, your kids or your job or whatever it may be. And I guess I would say that's fine. Anyone can be a fan any way they want to be a fan. But if you're going to go on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook and start get into conversations with people, you might run into somebody who really is interested in studying the tape and really does know, like, what they're looking at. And might tell you something that you don't like. Because it conflicts with your fandom, and I think that's where where we run into these problems.
But it's a meager.
Yeah, go ahead, Cam. Go ahead. I've been talking a lot.
I would say it's kind of a meager argument, just because, again, you can like lump him in there. It's not like he's not even close to any of those guys. He's right with them, and you can like another guy better. But like, it's just obvious that a Bills fan who sits at home and watches the games on Sundays, and watches like some news reports and big signing and all that, but doesn't like actually grind on things on tape, it's just going to think his guy who's putting up the top numbers in the league, who's dominating every week, something that we haven't seen in my lifetime. I never saw a receiver that good besides like Eric Moulds when I was like 6 years old.
T.O. was here. That. Stop it. T.O. was here.
He wasn't T.O. for us. He was a spectacle. I love that year. That was really fun. But he wasn't like T.O. He was T.O. winding down.
Right.
And with that, it's like, are you considering best receiver someone who's the best right now based off what they did last year? Or are you stacking years on top of each other? And with what you're saying, just watching the tape, do you put Allen Robinson in your top 3 or 5? Because he hasn't had any support.
I put Allen Robinson. Listen, he's right there. Allen Robinson is one of my favorite guys too. So the thing is with me is that I have my guys, but I like the guys that no one's talking about. And in this case, Diggs has been a guy who hasn't been talked about a lot. I've watched him, so I know about him. But he hasn't been talked about a lot as the top in the game. This is the first year he's been getting that love for top 5. Allen Robinson has been doing it for a while. But the only person that's currently in the top 5 that I would probably take out is Tyreek, because I'm not enamored with the speed. The speed is cool, but I like the nuances of the position, the hips, the catching, the detail to the route running, the head, the shoulder movements, your double moves. How do you do that? That's what to me, matters. Right. You know what I mean? Tyreek's good though. Don't get me wrong.
Tyreek doesn't have to be great.
Exactly.
Everyone's so afraid of his speed, whereas a guy like Diggs, who's probably like what? We're like a 4.5 guy, maybe 4.4.
He runs a. Hold on, I have it right here. 4.46.
Right. So like he has to be more of a technician, because guys aren't backing off. Like one of the things I did when I was in the scouting academy is that year I had to watch Damiere Byrd. He was with the Patriots last year. He was with like the Cardinals the year before that, and he's a real small guy, but he's like a 4.29 guy. So I'm watching them play the Lions, and Darius Slay's like literally 20 yards off the line of scrimmage. Now you can say, oh well, Damiere Byrd sucks. I mean, I liked him a lot, not as much as I like Keenan Allen, but that created so much space for Byrd. You got one of the best, 8, 9, 10 corners in the league giving you 20-yard cushion. It is the same thing with Tyreek. Like Tyreek doesn't have to run great routes because no one's even close to him because they're so terrified of his speed. So yeah, I mean, it affords him the ability to not have to be great out of his breaks or great off the line. Like Stevie Johnson, that guy was great off the line, like incredible off the line. Adams is another guy who's great off the line, stuff like that. But when you're so fast, it allows you.
Yeah, man. His physical gifts, like you say, allow him to be less nuanced in the important details of playing wide receiver. And so that's why I don't value him as highly. Obviously, he's a difference maker. Don't get me wrong. I love Allen Robinson, to answer your question. He is one of my favorite guys to watch because he's a big guy who can get down the field and he can win down the field too. And he can do it with pretty much anybody at quarterback. And he talked about that, not to get off track, but he talked about that in his PFF interview about how he doesn't really, value who his quarterback is when he's training. He just kind of, just trains for whoever's at quarterback, and that's how he approaches his training, and I thought that was a very interesting statement because that's exactly the way he plays. It really don't matter who the Bears had at quarterback. He was producing with whoever was back there. So, I mean, that was interesting, but yeah. But
he got his bag this year.
Oh, absolutely. And then just to wrap this up about Diggs, I took it a step further with this guy. And so I was saying today, I said that if Diggs continues, like if you look at his numbers, if Diggs continues for like another 3 or 4 years, I think he'll probably make the Hall of Fame and he'll be first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I would say.
But Charlie said we had 0.
I would say 5. Oh, see, now he's gonna swoop in on my Hall of Fame tweet right at the end of the podcast.
I was gonna bring it up at some point.
No, I mean my thing was okay. I'll explain that tweet. So I was sitting here and I was bored. And I said, man, do the Bills have any players right now who are on track to make the Hall of Fame, right? Because you can spot them, right? Like
at least one.
Aaron Donald, obviously, you have to retire. Obviously, you have to wait 5 years. I get it, but Tom Brady, duh. So I'm just saying, is there anyone on the Bills? And I was like, well, I mean, Diggs is probably the furthest one along that path, And sure, if Josh Allen does what he did this year for 10 more years, yeah, easy, he's in. Okay, but if he retired right now, he wouldn't be close. Diggs is just the furthest one down that path. That was kind of my point.
Yeah,
I think Trey White. Oh,
you think? No, go ahead, Cam. Go ahead.
I think Trey White is also on that path. He's gotten he was an All-Pro last year or just Pro Bowl?
Nope, he's All-Pro last year.
He was All-Pro.
Second-team All-Pro?
That stuff matters to the voters for sure.
Yeah, he's got 2 All-Pro years in his first 4, and he was highly regarded in his first 2 years as well. His team just wasn't good enough for him to get that kind of recognition. Second year he could have been up there, but the Bills were 6-10 because the roster moved, so he didn't get the kind of media attention that you would think or you would want. And he probably needs to do it for another 5 or 6 years, a few more All-Pros, just being the centerpiece of a defense that's good or a playoff team. Again, you're in people's faces enough and you're performing and people will put you in that echelon. Stefon has the best resume so far because he's done it for longer, but I think Trey White is definitely on that path. And then I know, EJ, you said Jerry Hughes before we started.
It was just a joke. It was just a joke. It was just a joke, bro. Because it was to get Bills Mafia riled up.
I did mention Jerry in one of my tweets because I said, let's say the Bills. Okay, but let's say the Bills go to the Super Bowl, lose, and let's say they go to the Super Bowl and win the next 2 years. What I meant was that's going to put Jerry into at least some conversation, whether he's a top 50 guy in the voting. I'm not saying he's going to make the final 15, but he'll be on those lists. If the Bills have another couple deep playoff runs, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I'm just saying I think that puts him onto people's lists.
He will be in the Hall of Fame of really good, Frank Gore. I don't think he's had enough.
Frank Gore is not a Hall of Famer. Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer,
but
in my
might
opinion.
not deserve it.
Eli Manning is most certainly to me a Hall of Famer.
Me too.
Eli's my guy. He's a Hall of Famer.
I don't think he's an overwhelming Hall of Famer, but he went 2 Super Bowls. He was
and
good
2
to
Super Bowl
great
MVPs, might I add. And he got it the hardest way possible. Yes, he has to be in there. But I want to go to your Trey White take before I forget about it. And you kind of opening up Pandora's box for me. But
here we go.
You talked about it, so I'm going to bring it up. So here's my thing. Do I think Trey White has the accolades to be on the Hall of Fame trajectory? But again, I told you with the last segment with Diggs, I am a tape guy. I watch the tape to see if you are a Hall of Famer. Now, in your unbiased opinion, emphasis on unbiased, do you think with his recent playoff performances against top competition, against the top wide receivers, that would warrant him being in Hall of Fame consideration?
I still think so because his competition is a team full of Hall of Famers. Like Kelsey and Mahomes are almost locks. Tyreek Hill, if he keeps it up for a few more years, is probably going to get in unless he continues to be the person he is off the field. I don't think he's losing against bums and just not showing up in the playoffs. I think he's losing to other Hall of Fame competition. And his skill set, like what he's able to do on the field, he's able to cover you, he's able to tackle you, he's able to get the ball out, play the ball, take the ball away throughout his entire career so far. Some years there's variance and takeaways, but he keeps on that path. I think it's just easy Hall of Fame.
So is he covering his guy or is he playing zone and making plays? Because he doesn't do well in man coverage at all. Well, not at all, but he doesn't do well in man coverage. And Bills Mafia kind of knows this, that he doesn't do well in man coverage. So to what you just said, it's like he's covering guy or is he covering space? Right? Like he's not locking somebody up. He's not Marshawn Lattimore. He's not going and finding those number one receivers. He's not doing Jalen Ramsey. He's not going finding these number one receivers and locking them up like he did DK Metcalf 3 times. He's not doing that. He struggled with DK Metcalf actually. So I'm going to push back a lot on the whole Hall of Fame thing. Like I said, he has the accolades to be a Hall of Famer, but the tape to me in big moments against other elite competition, like you said, don't scream Hall of Famer to me. He even got beat by Hollywood Brown in a playoff game and didn't get it thrown to him, but he got beat by him. So I have to push back on the he can cover you thing.
I
think he's.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say, just in the general Hall of Fame discussion, to me, cornerback is just it's weird, right? Like, I think it's really hard to get in when you're a corner. And I think there's a lot of good ones. And I think things are starting to change. And I think we're going to see that they're going to have to kind of redo what a corner is, who's a Hall of Fame corner, because you got a guy like Charles Woodson who just got in, who's just like, fantastic. He had like something ridiculous, like 11 defensive touchdowns, right? I mean, Champ Bailey is in, Palomalu. And you're looking at guys who, Ed Reed, who have like a ton of interceptions. And to EJ's point about the way the rules have been changed in terms of allowing the offense, I don't know if you're ever going to get like another corner, who's like just a turnover machine. So I think in Trey's generation of corners, it's going to be interesting to see what the criteria kind of becomes, because I think like turnovers are a big part of the Hall of Fame thing right now. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like if the Bills keep having deep playoff runs and White keeps going to the Pro Bowl and has a couple more All-Pros, I really think that that's the stuff that the committee values. So I think that he would get in eventually. But EJ, I certainly agree with you that Trey White is not, and we've said this, he's not like the next Champ Bailey. He's not like, the next Deion Sanders. He's not like the best man cover corner in the league. But like I said, I'm not sure if that really matters to the Hall of Fame,
Here's my point, Charlie, and this is what I kind of want to impress upon people with my Trey White take. So we have narrowed down that Trey White isn't the best in man coverage. We can all agree on that, correct? Right?
Yeah.
We can agree on that. Okay, right. So me, from what I've seen, I would say the best zone corner that I've seen to do it at a high level is probably Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters has the most interception returns for touchdown in like the last like 4 or 5 seasons, right? And I have to ask myself, so that's what Trey White is, right? Because we're agreeing that he's not a man corner, so he's a zone corner, right? That's what we're agreeing. So is he impacting the game like Marcus Peters is in zone coverage? He is not turning the ball over and converting it to points like Marcus Peters is. Now, yeah, last year he had 6 interceptions, which led the league, and he gave up no touchdowns. That is an awesome feat, and I tweeted that out.
And I think he had one pick six, right? Or did he have 2?
Yes, he did against Pittsburgh. He did. He had one.
But this year, I agree completely. This year, he struggled a lot.
Right.
I think
this year he did not play well, and the Bills Mafia doesn't want to hear that, and the Trey White lovers don't want to hear that. But compared to that season he had last year, he did not play well. So my ceiling is Marcus Peters. That type of consistency, that type of taking the ball away, that type of opportunities on the football. Now Marcus Peters gets burned a lot too, but he also wins a lot also. So it's Trey White winning like that on the opportunities that he gets on the ball. I can't say that I see that except for one season. I've seen it for one season. Other than one season, I haven't seen it.
Well,
so
I think
better at
I think he's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer, EJ. I mean, I think that he definitely goes into the NHL Hall of Fame as a goalie. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I think Trey's a better tackler, though, than Peters. I think he's better around just guys with the ball. He has better instincts to get the ball out with fumbles, too. He's just not as explosive because I think Peters takes those chances more, and so he gets a better reward when he's right, but he also gets burned a lot more because when he's wrong, they're behind him. Trey can get burned, but he doesn't get burned nearly – I don't think he gets burned nearly as much.
Go watch that tape and see if he gets burned nearly as much. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Go watch the tape. I'm a tape guy. Oh, but I just reiterated that he gets burned. We know this. We've seen that. We don't even need to watch tape to see that he gets burned because he like you said, he takes a lot of risk. But Trey White gets burned a lot too. just that's all. I just ask people to look at the game objectively. I know everyone loves Trey White. Trey White, the goalie, great thing. He's a great personality. I understand it. And he's
Sabres could use a goalie right now.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I understand that they love him. But just go and watch his tape. Go watch a couple games. That's all I'm asking for. And come back to me with your analysis. That's all I'm asking.
I just kind of want to criticize the defensive line moves a little bit. I think FA is a pretty good pickup. He's good rotation, but they seem to get stuck in the hole of rotational D-lineman rather than trying to find a guy in the draft or in free agency that can actually be like a difference maker. They just love getting guys who they can roll through and switch up lineups instead of trying to actually impact games on like a high level. Unless they hope that Ed Oliver can actually do that this year with Starback.
I'm gonna be honest though, I don't think FA is a bad move. Like he had 5.5 sacks last year. Yes, he did it in a rotational role, but if you look at his measurables and you just like look at him as a specimen, like he has upside, and I don't hate that because he can learn from a guy like Jerry Hughes and like try kind of hit on that upside. So when I'm looking at this pick, I'm like this signing. I'm like, man, this is a great signing. And then let's say you add another rookie in the draft like Carlos Basham, who also has like some upside, or somebody like who's another pass rusher, maybe Peyton Turner from Houston or somebody like that. And then you still got AJ Epinesa. Like they will have like a nice upside room at the defensive end at the edge position, and some guys for some years who can contribute. Even Daryl Johnson still has some upside too as a 7th round pick. So I mean, I like the move specifically for the upside. 5.5 sacks is nothing to sneeze at a rotational role. Sacks isn't really everything. I'm more about pressures. That's what I want to see. And clearly this guy can't get to the quarterback, but I think this will be a good move for the Bills in the long term. He's only on a 1-year deal, but I think he'll show enough to warrant, a longer term deal.
Yeah, but he has upside, and I'm not criticizing his pick in general, just that they keep seeming like they're really okay and comfortable with going with that rotation. And that I think it eliminates that they're going to take a pass rusher early in the draft. Unless they really want to double down, then I think it would be a really good move because then you definitely can find then they can just keep on with the iron sharpens iron mantra and actually find the guy who's going to impact the game. But I think they did this so they could fill that space, have another guy in the rotation, be able to have some depth at position. And now they're probably focusing on corner or running back. And I don't see them addressing the line at all unless they want to take a defensive tackle late and challenge Harrison Phillips to be a roster player.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I hope they take a pass rusher with the first pick. I mean, that would kind of be my choice, even though I'm jumping all up and down on these athletic DBs. I think either one of those would be fine. I don't want a running back early. It just like kind of looks like to me they certainly didn't want to add speed in the wide receiver room. So if they do want to add speed, like linebacker, running back seems like the only spot available on the offense, you know, because we got a really deep wide receiver room. There's no denying that. I mean, there's like 9 guys who, I mean, there are some of them are fringe, you know, starters, but like I think we got 9 really solid guys. So it seems to me that maybe they only add speed in the running back room. But I agree. I'm going to give them one more year with we like the defensive lineman rotation. And then if it doesn't work out this year, I'm going to be pounding the table to just you got to get a guy somehow that's just going to be a difference maker, more noticeable difference maker. That for me. So, yeah, I agree that's been a little underwhelming in my opinion.
Also relying on Jerry Hughes not to age at all. And they've been lucky to get him at the level he's playing for the last couple of years. And, you know, eventually that's going to teeter off, and you don't want to be stuck in that with not enough talent behind them.
Yeah, I agree. You should at least get a guy, you know, to develop behind him. I mean, I know Epinesa is a young guy, but you're going to need another guy at some point on the opposite side. So is that it? Anything else you guys want to talk about, or is that it? We can start giving people our where they can find us on Twitter or Instagram or whatever social media platforms you guys want to tell people to find you on.
Yeah,
I think I'm good.
Giving all my burning takes for the day. I have more, but you know, we don't have all that time.
Yeah, I'm a little burned out. I'm going to take a day off from controversial takes. Well, I appreciate you joining us on the show today. It was nice to have a guest. We've been sort of guestless, right? We've been guestless the past couple of times, kind of.
Yep.
So where can the good people of the Bills Mafia find you, Cameron?
I'm most prominent on Twitter at Anzalone_Cam, ANZALONE_CAM. And I will also be writing more consistently for Buffalo Fanatics, so look out for those pieces. The Fanatics account will tweet them out. I'll tweet them out. Like, retweet, share, yell at me, praise me, do whatever you want to do.
EJ.
Love it. Love your take, Cam. But yes, I'm most prominent on Twitter also, at eDaniel77. Hopefully you give me all your burning takes. I will be tweeting out burning takes, and I want to hear all your dislike, your vitriol, whatever you have for them, you let me know. And I'm here for all the smoke as usual.
And you can find me on Twitter with my amazing commentary on the Bills signings and re-signings at Charlie_Gross_. We are part of the Brawl Network. This is part of the Bills Brawl. This is the Process Show. We thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. This is the part where I would humbly ask you to leave a rating or a review. Make sure you subscribe. This allows other Bills fans to hear either our great takes, or it allows them to hear people who you think are incredibly stupid and don't know what they're talking about and who make you mad when you listen. Either way, we would really appreciate it if you would tell a friend or tell an enemy. With that being said, the Bills Mafia, find a way to embrace your growth mindset. And as always, trust the process.
Hey, who you reppin'? What's your team? Hey, you know I'm reppin' for my team. Hey, I got Josh Allen on my team. And Stefon Diggs on my team. Super Bowl, what you mean?